Neah, welcome to the Fearless Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
So we met. How long's it been now? Was it a couple months ago now?
I
When
think
was
so.
the
Yeah.
we met at the Healing Humanity meetup in Cedar Park. You'll notice I don't say Austin because, like, if you're from Texas, well, or if you like being from Texas, we like to avoid saying the word Austin because Austin embraces the weird. Austin likes to
Yeah.
be weird, and us Texans, we just like to be not weird. I'm making a little Texas funny joke there. We're transplants. I know you're a transplant too, so I thought that'd be kind of funny. Anyway, but we got to meet at the Healing Humanity meetup, met tons of awesome people. You were one of the awesome people we met.
Hmm.
And so I know you had us on your channel, but I thought maybe we could have you on the podcast and we could kind of have like a carnivore conversation as far as like, maybe give us your story as far as like health wise, where you were, what was going on, um, how and why you implemented carnivore, and what kind of success you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long story, and I always kind of preface it that way because it's there's so many things that have happened throughout and different issues that I've dealt with. So sometimes I forget to mention everything. But really, the whole thing, my health journey really started back in my teens, like mid to late teens, when I started having symptoms of what I would later realize was irritable bowel syndrome, IBS type stuff. And I, didn't really know what it was at the time, but just noticed that I, started to have a lot of pain and, would be like stuck in the bathroom after meals for long periods of time, and then it would take me out of class and things like that. And so that was really when the whole thing began. But I didn't start really looking into a solution or like what I could do until I was in my early 20s. And I, for whatever reason, just always had the idea that, diet was going to play a role and that if I could just figure out the right diet, the right things to eat, then I could fix this or work with this problem. Because, I mean, obviously it was related to food. Like every time I would eat, something would happen. And so I just associated it, I guess, with diet in general. So I started doing some research and, everything was pointing me in the plant-based direction. So it was like more fiber, drink more water.
Yeah.
I started getting into like Andreas Moritz books. I read his giant secrets of health and rejuvenation or something like that. And that, was like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. And so I totally got sucked into that plant-based approach to gut health and the microbiome and probiotics and, home ferments and all that kind of stuff in the beginning. And I definitely struggled to maintain that because I felt like the stricter I got with that, even going down to raw vegan a couple of times, like everything just kept getting worse, and like the brain fog and the anxiety was crazy, and anxiety was starting to become an issue during this time as well. And I knew I had social anxiety, even though I didn't really know that that was the term again for it, but just having like being very very nervous around in groups of people or going to crowded places. Like I tried to do everything to avoid that, but I was also working as a server and bartender in the restaurant industry. I started when I was 18, 19 years old, and so obviously it's a very like extroverted position, and so I'm constantly around people. It's creating all this anxiety. And there was, just part of that culture, restaurant culture, is definitely drinking and staying up all night when everybody else is asleep. You work while everybody else is out. So it's like that whole environment just kind of opened the door for me to develop some coping mechanisms for the pain that I was, dealing with physically, and then also this sort of crushing anxiety that was becoming overwhelming. So I started drinking a lot in my early to mid 20s, and that pretty much continued until I hit 30, 31, I think was when, well, 32. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, basically I kept trying to do this plant-based thing. And, all the information kept pointing to that. And I'm like, this is just not working. Everything was getting worse. And so one day I was just reading on the internet and I stumbled across this blog called Paleo Leap. And that was when, the light switch went off and I thought, oh, what's this whole ancestral eating paradigm thing that had never crossed my path before? And so that was the day I cut out grains. So I was like, okay, let me just, switch over from trying to be vegetarian and, we're going to keep the meat and the starches and stuff like that, but cut out all the grains. And that was the first time I noticed really anything that was like, oh, within a week's time, like I feel different. I actually feel better. And so from there, it was really just this process over that was probably when I was like 25 or 26, I think, when I found paleo. And then it was just like slowly cutting things out over the next 5-6 years, as I learned more about, gut disorders, and I figured out what FODMAPs were, and I figured out what nightshades were, and like, oh, people have issues with these types of plants, right? So let me just eliminate that group, and then this group, and then I just was kind of down to like giant salads. I was doing the organic mixed greens every single day, the best quality, and like olives and bell peppers and cucumbers, I think, and then meat. And I was making my own salad dressings from organic oils and pure vinegar, so no seed oils or anything like that. And then there was a point where I just got real busy and I just accidentally ate only meat for like a few days in a row, and I didn't make my usual salads. And I didn't notice it immediately, but it was because I had been doing colon hydrotherapy treatments in clinic for a number of years, and then I switched to home enemas, which I know is gross and TMI and everything, but like that was how I was limping along and functioning. And so by this point, when I kind of accidentally only ate meat, I was like, wait a minute, I don't feel like I need to do one of those today. Like my gut was calm and it wasn't all just, full of pain and gas and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, what did I do differently? And it was like, oh, I just ate meat. And that was it. So then I kind of went back to the internet, and that was right when Sean Baker had gone recently on Joe Rogan's podcast and talked about the carnivore diet. And I saw Michaela Peterson's story. So like things started coming up, and I was like, oh, this is called carnivore, and like people are doing this, and it's actually like for inflammation and things like that. It's really helping people. So maybe I'm onto something. And so I was on it for almost a year. My gut symptoms went into complete remission. Anxiety lessened greatly, but I was still drinking a lot of alcohol, like just liquor. I'd cut out wine and beer and all that kind of stuff a long time ago. But until I got pregnant, then I had to quit drinking. But when I quit drinking and was sick from that during that first trimester, it's like the food sort of started to come back in, and it was like, oh, mashed potatoes, that's the only thing I can kind of stomach and get down. And so it went from adding in some mashed potatoes to adding in some other things. And then pretty soon it was like, okay, this is, I'm sort of back to that quote unquote balanced diet, or whatever we call it. So then after I gave birth, it was just a struggle to get back, because I always knew like this is the way I feel best. That was 2020, March of 2020, when our baby was born. So that was right when like everything, was starting to fall apart. Like I had a home birth, thank God, because there were people that were not even being allowed to, like,
Yeah.
if I would have gone to the hospital, I guarantee you I would have been alone. Like my partner wouldn't have been there. My parents, came down for the birth. Like nobody would have been let in. So like, thank God everything worked out the way it did. But like all this stress, I guess, came back into my life. And so I started, drinking again, and using over time, like using that again as a strategy. And so, I kind of we lived off grid in a bus, a self-converted school bus during COVID. And like I was separated from Ben, and like it was just this crazy, crazy few years. And so when we finally got here to Dallas, it's kind of like my health just crashed again, like after going through all that stress and just not prioritizing my health. just kind of like survival mode. We got sick with something. I don't know for sure what it was, but that was like the last straw, and my body just kind of broke, and it was like severe fatigue, just like that bone, just like your bones are so tired, like you can't. So, and just my mood was all over the place. I felt like a pin would drop in here, and I would just be ready to explode, like just not in a good place. And so I was like, okay, I know, like, I've got to do both this time. I've got to go back to this diet, and I've got to cut out the alcohol, completely. And then that's my only chance of, like, becoming, going back to who I am, because I just was not myself. And so, yeah, it's been now, I guess that was July of 2023. So it's been, what, 18, 19, 20 months, somewhere around there. And I have a YouTube channel. I've had my ups and downs. I still do, to this day, with certain gut things. And I think it's a long-term game with the microbiome, and getting rid of some of these resilient bacteria, whatever's still probably been in there since I was a kid, and like has just been creating those sugar addictions and the alcohol addiction and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that's the medium length version of the story. So here I am.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I find it fascinating, for one, carnivore is breaking the food pyramid paradigm, and it's destroying and disintegrating, I guess, what one might call conventional wisdom. Most people's stories are very similar. All of us that have gotten concerned about our health and wanted to feel better, we read the China study and Daniel Graham's book 80-10-10, and all of these plant-based books, Gerson therapy, and many of us have kind of went down this plant-based rabbit hole, and like, this is the answer. And then as we go that direction, and we're becoming incredibly strict with what we eat and how we eat, things just get worse and worse. But what I find very interesting, that with this carnivore trend, there is another trend where people will talk about alcohol and eliminating alcohol. I have a very good friend at work, and his doctor convinced him that a glass of wine a day was healthy for him, and he started drinking. He had never drank, and he started drinking wine, and he gained a ton of weight, and he drank so much that he got fatty liver disease. And it's so incredible to me that this was just because of some doctor's recommendation, but we're seeing more and more people in this space, in the carnivore space, and they're just saying, hey, lay off the alcohol, get off the alcohol. When we understand it on a systems level with glucose and blood glucose, I mean, it totally makes sense, but it also speaks to like this larger concept of like bioflavonoids, and wine is actually healthy and all this stuff. But what we're finding is that it's incredibly addictive. Two, it's like injecting sugar into your veins, and there are repercussions to that and negative consequences. And so, I really think that that's very interesting. And then the way I understand that you explain it is basically by going carnivore, it literally like broke the addiction, you know. How do you see that kind of taking place?
Yeah, I think it's exactly like you said. I mean, I didn't expect a whole lot. I expected, because I've quit drinking, like I said, during pregnancy, because not because I necessarily wanted to, but it's like, okay, well, I have to do this. And there's been like two other times before that that I have attempted to, eliminate it completely. I think one time I made it like 30 days and the other time was like 3 months or something like that. Without having the diet component dialed in. And so um, so I didn't expect to not have cravings. I expected that I was going to be abstaining, but like fighting it all the time, waking up every day being like, oh, I wish I could drink. Or every time I get stressed, like, oh, I wish I could have a drink. That was my mentality going in. It was like, this is just going to be a battle that I'm going to have to wake up every day and choose to fight, but it was maybe like that for the first 2 weeks, maybe 30 days, but, and I had kind of weaned down. I mean, just to be fair, like I was maybe having like 3 to 4 drinks a night and not, I wasn't going out anymore. I was not doing shots and being like insane like I used to, in my 20s and stuff like that. So it was like a much more quote unquote normal version of drinking that you might, people wouldn't consider an issue maybe, but it was just the fact that it was still controlling me and I knew I was using it to cope, with stress and everything. And it was not healthy for my body. So, but it really only took about 30 days before I just didn't have the cravings anymore. Like I just didn't, like I had made sure that there was no alcohol left in the house, like, so there wasn't going to be that temptation, but, you can get vodka delivered to your doorstep if you want, with your phone. So it's like, it's not that hard to just press a button and somebody will bring you some. In the back of my mind, I was kind of worried about that. I'm like, am I ever going to be able to, but it just went away. Like I just stopped thinking about it. And then all of a sudden it was like 6 months later and I was like, oh, I haven't drank for 6 months. Cause I had promised myself, I was like, let me go till New Year's. That was kind of my mindset too. It was like short term, I could wrap my mind around the next 4 or 5 months or whatever. And then when it got to that point, I was like, I don't have a desire to even do this. And that was not what I expected at all.
That's so neat. There's a carnivore content creator. He's in Ireland. You know who I'm
Mac or
thinking of? And he's like our age. And the last thing that he gave up was alcohol. And it was similar. Like he didn't have necessarily like, I mean, society wouldn't have considered like him an alcoholic or like he was, very functional, like normal life and everything. But it just bothered him that like it still had a grip on him and it was like his last vice that he hadn't given up. And so he finally, I'm trying to think, he's got the best accent ever. And I think Carrie Mann has had him on his channel.
the guy with the beard. I think his name's Mac, right? I think I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Dave
I don't know.
Mack, probably. Well, he lives in Japan now,
Oh,
Dave
okay.
Mack.
Oh,
But
I don't know. But anyway, he had a very similar story though to that. And it was just like that last thing that he gave up and it was so easy for him. And he was in Ireland and he was just like there's like a pub everywhere. People just every day for lunch go and drink like it's very like cultural there and it was just something that he had never like he had dealt with it his whole entire life.
I just find it fascinating that the diet like kills the cravings from the sugar in the food, which
Mhm.
helps you like control your intake, and then it will literally kind of bleed out. And obviously it helps you with your mental state because your brain is getting the the fats and everything that it needs to thrive. And it's so incredible how when you give your body everything it needs, like it will literally like in a real way kind of reject these other things
Right.
that are harming you, and it'll even help you like just be like, oh yeah, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, it's like me at the dessert table every Sunday. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I can appreciate it. I think it was like on one of Kelly Hogan's videos, somebody was saying, like, I appreciate looking at desserts. Like, they're beautiful. And I have the information of, like, oh, yeah, I'm sure it would taste good. Of course, it's like processed sugar, refined sugar. Of course, it would taste amazing, but I don't have any desire for it anymore. It's like art. Like, I can look at it and it's just like, okay, well, yeah, it's a beautiful pie. I don't need to taste it. Like, I'm good. It has no power over me anymore, which is so
Hmm.
crazy because the sugar was like such a thing for me my whole entire life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
So,
difference is it doesn't have power over me now. And I've tested it and I've told people on my channel this. Like there's a couple times that I'm like, because that's how I do, I'm like, what am I going to react to this? Am I going to, I've tried to add foods back in and stuff, but there have been a couple times where like I've had a glass of wine and um, it's like I can enjoy it, but I don't want any more. And the next day I'm like I don't even remember that it happened. I don't think about it. It doesn't wake up food noise or sugar cravings, or I don't go buy any more alcohol. It's like, because my fiance is a chef, and so we go out, here and there to places, and there's usually like a nice wine list or something. So like I don't know, twice in the last probably 18 months or however long it's been, I've like had a glass of wine at a restaurant and it's like not a big deal, and like there again, I thought I'm going to try this and it's probably going to trigger me, but
right,
it
right.
just doesn't. And like, I'm like, is that what moderators feel like? Like I've never had that experience where,
wow.
especially going into a social situation where normally like I used to take a rum and Coke to Walmart in my car 15 years ago because that's how like anxious I would get, just so worked up about going to Walmart by myself, like, and it was very very crowded and stuff, but like that's how bad my anxiety was, and now I can go to the store and not, think about drinking and like so that's
Right.
but then, there's been those couple times where I'm like, yeah, I could enjoy one glass of wine or share one with my partner at dinner, and then it's like now I can go 2 years, or whatever, when not think
Right.
about it. Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
freeing to me to make
Yeah.
that choice for myself versus being like this thing compulsively controls me.
Right, absolutely. And you wonder just how much, like the psychological part of it, just your brain health has to do with the addiction. Like for me with sugar, or for
Hmm.
you with alcohol, it was like it was kind of your crutch, it was your thing. And where my brain was not like getting enough fat and protein. And I mean, because we were highly plant-based too, most of our marriage. And I was more plant-based longer always than my husband was, even because it was just what I liked. I liked fruits and vegetables, and I would eat them all the time, where he was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm eating the salad, like, but I
Yeah.
actually enjoyed the salad. So I don't know. It's just, but now, but obviously my brain is the same, like with anxiety, social anxiety, going into stores. Like I didn't do that for years. I would send my kids in when they were 9, 7, and 6. We moved down here, and I'm like, okay, they're old enough. They can go into the feed store. They can buy stuff. They can go wherever, not into Walmart, but into like the little local grocery stores. I would just have them go in, and I'm like, it's life skills, which it was, and it was good for them to learn. But the truth of it was that I just didn't want to go in. Like I super didn't want to go
Hmm.
in. And we live in such a small little town. I mean, there's hardly anybody around. It's not like we're in a big place where it would be like maybe more normal to have anxiety over, going somewhere where it's like overcrowded or whatever. People are going to be rude to you or whatever. It's not like that. It was just like super little podunk, nowhereville, and I didn't want to get out of the car. So, but all had to do with my brain health. And I mean, all of that, the hormones and everything just totally healed and switched over. And that was stuff that I had dealt with, I mean, our whole married life. So, yeah. Yeah, the plant-based thing is really a thing. I think a lot of us have that in common. I know Carnivore Today, Adam talks about that all the time, about how he did plant-based and, in seeking health, like in trying to get healthy. And that's what we were trying to do. I don't know if we shared much of that before.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but do you drink coffee, Nia?
Maybe. I cut it out. Okay. I mean, I have a whole coffee thing too, because that, you know, you talk about, and this happens too, where let's say you quit drinking in my case, but then you replace it with something, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
see that's sort of a stereotype, like all the AA people are now at the coffee shop just chugging
Yeah, yeah,
caffeine
yeah.
instead, like just high on caffeine now. So like I was also aware of that, that I needed to find something healthy to replace this gap in my coping strategy for life, let's say. And coffee had been like I had basically throughout from the time our baby was born, throughout COVID, doing the bus, all this kind of stuff. Um, like I was basically living like regulating my whole nervous system with alcohol and caffeine and sugar. So it would be like drink boatloads, get up in the morning. I was hauling water, chopping wood, diesel heater, generate, like just doing all this stuff basically by myself, not 100%, but we were lucky to find actually a family member who had some land out in Arizona where we actually got to put our bus during this time, but we were still separated. And so it was like, a lot of, anyway, so I would, get up and just drink tons of coffee to just like go, do all this stuff. And then I'd be super stressed at night. So, put the baby to bed and then just drink, 3, 4, 5, whatever it took to kind of knock me out and then basically repeat the next day. And so, because of the way that because I had found carnivore and I knew like I can't tolerate fiber, I can't, do vegetables in any quantity, like, but I can tolerate like processed foods. They don't really immediately upset my system because they're void of fiber and basically any nutrition, right? They just kind of, so that actually was an issue for me because I would, turn to this caffeine, excessive caffeine, and then this quick energy source, during those stressful years. And that I think just totally messed up my gut, obviously, even worse. And that's what I think I'm still dealing with at this point. But on the coffee side of things, like that was part of the whole like nervous system crash that I had, when we got here. I was drinking like close to 2 pots of coffee a day, definitely a pot and a half, of like regular strength, whatever. So, and that wasn't even putting a dent in my fatigue. And that's when I realized like there's something wrong. Like more coffee is not more better, and I can't even like get up off the couch after drinking a pot of coffee. Like then there's something wrong here. So I slowly started mixing decaf in over like 3 months. I think it was like October, November, December of that first year. And then when I got to January, I tried the Lion diet for the first time for 30 days and I cut out coffee completely. Then I added decaf back in for like 5 months or so. And then I cut it out again completely for like over 100 days. So it was like most of the summer, last summer. And then when it started getting cold again, I started like, oh, I want something again. And so, but I was still dealing with this fatigue in and out. And so I would like add a little bit of caffeine. And so it's slowly kind of crept its way back in. But now I feel like here again, like I went from one extreme to the other. And now I kind of know exactly where I sit with caffeine. It's like these are the symptoms I get when I have too much, and then I back off. I may not have any at all for a few days, and I can do that because I'm not afraid to say, oh, I can cut it out, because I did it for a long period. So I guess I use it strategically, and it's addicting, and I'll admit it. I like the caffeine high in the morning, and so
Well,
here we are.
every guest on the Fearless podcast gets a gift. And so we would like to send you a bag of our coffee as a strategic reserve to, break in case of emergency, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have whole bean and ground, and we have light, medium, dark, and then we also have a what's called a white roast, which is a first crack roast. But I'll
Oh,
get with you
okay.
after the episode, and you can let us know what it's all organic and all that kind of good stuff.
That sounds good.
So
Okay.
we always like to.
And I understand the coffee struggle because we joke that we're like coffee carnivores, because there's like the no coffee carnivores and then there's the people that still drink coffee. And we've done all of it. Like we've quit coffee, we've added back in decaf. Now I've been trying to do like this mushroom powder stuff because I have thyroid issues. So I want to continue to heal my thyroid goiters that I have on both sides of my thyroid. So I was looking up these mushroom blends, and I've been using a mushroom blend powder for, I don't know, 6 years now. But I usually just put it into my coffee. So then I was just doing the mushroom blend, and with me it's dairy too. So I have this like relationship with dairy that it just doesn't work. Me and dairy just it I wish it would work, but it doesn't.
Me too.
And it just will give me like inflammation and my gut will swell up and just cystic acne all over. And so I'll try to dabble in it and like, well, just a splash. And then that turns into like, I am not a moderator. So it'll turn into
Yeah.
like me sipping on half and half all day long, and it's
Yep.
not a good thing. So now I'm back to butter again. So, yeah, but it's that cyclical, not that I won't ever put a splash of half and half in my coffee or mushroom tea or whatever I'm doing again. So today I had my coffee, which my children are older. They get up and they make a big pot of regular coffee. So it's there, so it's really easy. And it's hard to like, okay, I'll make my decaf. Like I've done it, in different seasons, but it's just like, it's right there. It's already done. I'll just pour
Hmm.
the regular coffee. And then, as I refill the cup during the day, I just do the mushroom tea in it. So it's like barely got any coffee left in it. But, I try to do that with my iodine. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned also the enemas because that was another thing that we did. Way TMI for most people, I understand. So if we're scaring you right now, you can turn this off. But if you're interested in what crazy people do to pursue health, yeah, we had watched a documentary like 20 some years ago now. I don't know, 25 years ago probably. And it was on Gerson therapy. And of course, plant-based, that got us on the road on plant-based and all that kind of stuff. And so we were like, yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but we're kind of extreme crazy people too. Like we do the weird extreme things. We're like, really? Yeah, like we should try that, like we're not afraid. So we did the coffee enemas. I mean, it's been 25 years or whatever it's been.
20,
It's
yeah.
been a long, long time. And when we started Carnivore about 2 years ago now, it was the first time. Well, I didn't do them while I was pregnant, but he did them still. And it was for inflammation, for arthritis, mental health. I mean, there's just so many gut health, just so many different benefits that we saw from it. And also, just trying to be preventative, and like detoxing and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I didn't do them while I was pregnant, but when we started Carnivore, I'm like, I guess I really don't need this anymore. Like, it's just why, I don't really feel like, I need it. But then different times over the last couple of years, I have felt like I've had to go back to it for certain times and for all different reasons. Just one issue that I had was with the dairy, which I didn't know because we have been dairy free for like 7 years. And then we tried adding back in the dairy. And for some of us, we can handle it better than others in the family. Some people, it's just like instant like ear infections and, swollen glands in their necks. And they just get all kinds of weird stuff going on with the dairy. And I have other stuff going on with it. So yeah, we kind of went back to it. And then just here recently, I guess you've always kind of kept with the coffee.
Not since going carnivore.
No,
No.
but once in a while. Like you do use it like once in a while, I think, right? Like
Not
once a
since.
month? Really?
No, not since going carnivore.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we're old. I guess we don't pay attention to each other. I thought he was still using it once in a while, but in the past like month or so, I just felt like my mental health was struggling more. Like I just felt more down. I just didn't feel like like in a good place anymore mentally, and my food hadn't really changed at all. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to the coffee breaks and start doing that again. And in the last couple days, I'm like instantly, just like all the bloat in my stomach went away. Just outside walking, doing stuff. My mental clarity was like, it was just almost instantaneous. Like everything was just all back in line. And, also when you feel better, you do better is what we always say, and like, so now I've been doing a fast for the last couple days, and it's just, I don't know. Like, I know it's not for everybody. I know there's certain carnivore people out there that are totally against it because it's coffee or whatever, but it's just like, there's a lot, Another thing we're playing around with is that L-Reuteri yogurt and that probiotic. And you've seen a big difference in your sleep.
Yeah, and I think the neatest thing about the community is like once you realize one that everything that you've been taught or told is relatively speaking is a lie, and then like wait a minute, I can improve my health by making very simple changes, and then you do it and you feel better, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, like. First off, I thought I was just getting old and I thought I was doing really great, but I just felt terrible because I was old. And then, like, well, no, I was just eating food that was not making me well and making me feel sick. So now I eat food and I feel better. What else can I do? And so you continue to experiment, and you're like, okay, so, well, for one, let's see what the coffee's doing. Let's take the coffee all the way out.
Right.
Okay. Still feel good, feel fine. When I add the coffee back in. Okay. Like for me, I can't eat eggs and I love eggs. And I used to eat almost 24 eggs a day, but for whatever reason, even just the yolks, they give me inflammation, so I can't eat the eggs. So these are the kind of things that we mess with and experiment with, And so I cut out the coffee for like 3 or 4 months, and had no problem cutting out the coffee. But I'm like, hey, because that's the other thing that I think the puritanical people sometimes get lost in is like, we want this to be sustainable, right? And we want to, you want to add back in creature comforts, for lack of a better term. Like if I can add this back in and it's not going to negatively impact my health and it's not going to set me back, then obviously I will add it back in. It's a cup of coffee. I'm not talking about drinking a pot of coffee or whatever. So if you can add that back in and it's not going to kill you, and like, oh, this is just another thing that I get to enjoy. I'm not eating Little Debbie anymore, and I'm not like wiping out the dessert table at church on Sunday. You know what I mean? So if that means I drink a couple 8 to 16 ounces cups of coffee, that to me makes sense because it's just more sustainable. It's something that you can enjoy. You can reintroduce it, and that's what's really neat in the carnivore community is because people are constantly experimenting.
Right. Yeah. And I watched a thing today because I was back onto this coffee enema thing again. And, I watched Dr. Barry's take on it and he was not a fan. And I'm like, okay, well, that's okay, but, I was watching another natural path doctor, and she was saying that with the, what is it called?
Gut biome?
Like gut biome, but the, what is it called?
Oh, parasites.
Parasites, yeah.
Yeah.
I keep thinking pestilence. I told him before
It
we
is
started
pestilence.
recording, I'm like, it's
Same thing.
Yeah, it
parasite.
is the same thing.
Yes. And but she said that with the green coffee, there's now research out that with the green coffee, which is higher, the lighter roast, and it's higher in caffeine, there's actually documented research out right now. And I'll have to find that video and link it maybe. It was really, really good. That a lot of times when she's prescribing these coffee enemas, and she does a lot of different things, not just that, but she was saying that, and they're home based. She's not making money on it or anything, but she just said that people are finding better benefits with parasite removal with a green
Interesting.
coffee or a high caffeine coffee with a light roast. And she was saying different experiences that different people had, and she was going into also like the mental health aspect of it. And I mean, people that had severe like bipolar and different things that had just experienced. And I'm like, everything is so tied together. And I mean, we're living in such a fallen, broken system, and we're so bombarded with toxins. I mean, from before the time we're even born, that like I get that it's not maybe a natural process that humans have done forever, is like, worry about these parasites or whatever in all these different ways, and, mix up L-reuteri yogurt and whatever, just do all these different weird things. I mean, she was even talking about ivermectin and using that, which we do that too. And I get that's not natural maybe, but we're not living in a totally natural society anymore either. Yeah, and I know you've dealt with that. You were saying you're still dealing with some stomach issues and different things like that. I know I had listened to one of your videos that you put out just a little bit ago, and you were talking about just different things that you had tried, and we're still kind of experimenting and trying to figure out different, solutions.
Yeah, I mean it's funny we're on the enema topic because I actually dug out my kit. I saved that sucker and cleaned it out the other day, and I was like, I've been thinking about doing some again because, like you said, I can't do dairy either, and I keep thinking, oh, just a little sour cream will be fine, but then it spirals, and then I'm like, it's weeks to a month of just like my gut's not the same, my skin flares up, and it takes a long time depending on how much it was and what type of dairy it was, to recover from that. And so like I used to do coffee ones and then just plain saltwater ones, and I would kind of alternate those, and because I like the coffee, sometimes the coffee ones were too intense. Like I would get, I don't know how TMI we want to get, but like just like it would cause spasming and stuff, and that was kind of painful, and that would last afterwards. And so I found like I couldn't do those because I was doing them every day basically. And so I couldn't do that every single day. But anyway, I've been thinking about trying them again because I think, I compare a lot of like what's going on this second round, I call it, with my first experience. Because the first time I got to carnivore, it was that 30-day miracle kind of situation where I just felt so good, and it was like, holy crap, like how did I know about this, and then this time it's just been much slower and much more gradual, and like I still deal with cravings, and like for food, it's like we talked about alcohol, and like that disappeared. And that was not what I was expecting. But I expected the sugar food cravings to go away like that. And they come and go, and it's weird. And so I've talked to a couple people about that, the whole microbiome thing. And I've tried the L-reuteri yogurt, and I reacted badly to that. And so I tried it twice. I made it at home, and somebody had recommended this certain like goat kefir that I could, get at the store. I tried that. I reacted to that. I've tried raw milk and raw cream from local places, and I reacted real bad to that. And so I've just kind of settled on no dairy, in any form really. But there's been 5 or 6 times when I've, over the past year and a half that I've tried that, and it just has taken me so long to recover from each of those episodes. And so that's kind of where I think a lot of the ups and downs have been. And then just with fat too, I feel like I can't eat a lot of fat or I get symptoms. And so I've tried, cutting out the rendered fat. I try to eat more raw fat, but I also feel like I have some histamine type, like GI histamine symptoms and I've talked to several people like at the Cedar Park meetup that, kind of had the same thing. And so I thought, well, maybe this is a histamine thing and it's not really a microbiome thing, but necessarily. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out, but I guess the main thing that's different between the first time and this time was the amount of time that I had slowly cut out things. So like from paleo at 25 to carnivore at like 31, I think. That time period was just slow. Like my microbiome had that many years to slowly adjust to the elimination process. Whereas this time it was like vodka, processed food, tons of caffeine, and then a lot of meat, and then it was like cold turkey on everything but the meat. And so I think I just like, my gut's like fighting, those microbes are fighting for their lives, and for whatever reason, the alcohol ones went away, which I'm thankful for, but some of the other ones aren't, haven't yet. And I think that's, from what I've gathered, that's probably what my situation is. So maybe the enemas would help, I guess is what I'm getting at, to bring those back in for me.
Yeah, this one video that I watched today, it's amazing because it's like as time goes on, there's just more information that comes out about different things, and there was definitely some more information on that, and I'll share with you the link to it. But that's what this doctor was saying. She was saying that even with different parasites, people can test negative to having parasites, and yet they still have them. Like they can move around, they can, like, I don't know, she was saying all different things, like they're very like stealth, like they can,
Very
like
parasitic.
hide and then
Yeah.
come back out. And yeah, but she was saying people were making out really good with the white coffee, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, because we just added white
Mm-hmm.
coffee to our coffee line and we've never used that before
Yeah, sure.
for, coffee breaks, we call them. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if I could help somebody, we've been open about that, like on our channel, just at different times. I mean, we've maybe mentioned it maybe 3 times in, I don't know, 8 years or whatever. But just, I mean, if it'll help somebody, it's just a really big deal. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's just the mental part of it really plays a lot. Like I would say, even with the food and the cravings, like it might not even be a physical thing. It might just be like, for us, our oldest son got married this past November, and just like the stress, even good stress is still stress, even a really
Mm-hmm.
great situation and all that. It's still stressful. It's a lot of change and transition. And so I'm just like, I don't care. It's still carnivore. I'm having a taco with cheese on it. Like, I'm putting the sour cream on it. You know what? It's been a hard day. I'm looking at baby pictures and like, oh, like what happens,
Yeah.
So like, I'm
Yeah.
eating the taco. You know what? I'm eating 3 more tacos. It's still carnivore,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not clean especially for me and what I can handle. So I know,
Well, yeah, and then there's the other part of carnivore, like Nia was mentioning, that I didn't go on and off of carnivore, but I went carnivore, and I battled insomnia in high school, and have never really slept well since high school, and always had problems sleeping. Then I developed this shoulder and back issue, which for several years eliminated my sleep. Like I very quite literally didn't sleep more than an hour at a time for like maybe 5 to 6 years. And then I go carnivore and I'm sleeping like a rock, and this was like 30 days in, and I hit this like perfect sleep window for like almost a month. It was just like incredible. The one thing that didn't stop happening is I did not stop snoring. So I can't sleep on my back, or I snore and I wake myself up. But
And he's got the nose strips and the
yeah,
mouth
I do
tape
the
and the
mouth tape and the nose
he's
strips.
got the
I'm a
grounding
I'm a
sheets.
biohacker.
He's got
Yeah.
I have blue
got it
blockers. I
all.
have red blockers. I mean,
Hmm.
for whatever it takes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm a biohacker.
He's got the ivermectin.
Hmm.
Now he's drinking the blue fabric
Me-
dye, methane blue. He's like, I
Oh
mean, I'm
yeah.
telling you,
Yep. We have some of
yeah,
that.
I'm a biohacker.
we're just,
No, you know, we're always experimenting. We're trying
yeah.
stuff, and I've hit this sleep realm again, where like I have to, for some reason, whatever was working
Yeah.
is not, you know, and I regulate the fat and try to in, uptick the fat towards bedtime. I do
Mm-hmm.
all that hack on the food side, but you know, you're constantly just experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you definitely need to sleep. I mean, that's an important aspect of life. You need to sleep.
Well, yeah, I am like sleep has been a game changer because I'm so protective and I've like changed things that I didn't even necessarily want to change, like stopping live streaming in the evenings and doing that kind of stuff like to protect my sleep because I noticed for me that because I was always so tired that I'd have no issue like falling asleep, but I would I'd wake up 5, 6 times a night and just was not
Yes.
getting quality sleep. And then I was just so tired throughout the day. I'd even take a nap and still be exhausted. And then the coffee and all, so like, I think cutting it, getting the caffeine situation under control was huge for me too, because I think that was actually disrupting my sleep even though it wasn't like making me feel awake during the day. Like I think it was just messing with the whole, like that excessive amount was messing with the whole thing. But I guess where was I going with that? Just oh, I think when I don't get enough sleep, that's like the number one thing that can throw me off my game, like make me make a bad food decision, or I get grump, my mood changes, or like if I don't get like 9 hours most nights of the week and it's quality sleep, like I'm not set up to win for that day, And so that's something I've really learned to, because I went through an insomnia uh, thing on Carnivore last year, right about this time last year. It was like March and April. And it was just like all of a sudden I started waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning every single night, wide awake, like, but still tired. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel rested, and I'd get up and I'd get on the computer and work and be like, okay, I'm going to be productive today. But then by noon, I'm like dead, and just
Hmm.
just crawling through the rest of the day to like get to bed. And then it would happen again. I'm like, what is going on? And I ended up fixing that with going super high fat and dropping my protein like below what I should be eating, like an almost 90-10 split. And then within like 3 days, my sleep came back on. And now I don't eat super high fat, and I have not had an issue since then. But since that time, I've been like very aware of things that throw off my sleep and how not getting enough sleep just like it changes my mood and everything. So I'm the same. I'm like blue blockers on, get off the devices at sunset if at all possible. I have my watch set to like the sunset and all this kind of stuff to be like, we're calming down, the candles, all this kind of stuff, because I think sleep is crucial. Yeah.
It's really, really important, I mean, what we eat, how we rest, how we move. I'm every day, like just going out and making sure that I'm walking, getting outside, getting sunshine, all of that stuff. And I've heard people even say, I think it was on one of Kelly Hogan's video, her interviews. It was an older lady, and she really struggled with sleep. And it was her B vitamins. Her body was not processing the B vitamins like it was supposed to. And so she was recommending, I think, people get that blood work done to make sure that your body is actually, I can't remember what the blood test is called. I should know what it's called. But anyway, it's to, I don't know, to use the B vitamins properly.
Sounds scientific.
It's
I don't know,
I'm a
babe.
doctor.
I'm
I'm a
not. I
doctor. I'm
don't.
almost a doctor. I
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I don't know what it
also,
would be called, but
yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, there is a blood test for that to test to make sure that your body's actually absorbing and taking in the B vitamins correctly. I'm trying to think. But anyway, and dairy, that was another thing that somebody else said that when they just were trying it and they were like, let me just cut out the dairy and see, and that was the thing that was messing up their sleep. So it's like it's so
Mhm.
different for everybody, you know? So it's just
I
trying.
think that's the biggest point is everybody's different, everybody's body's different,
Hmm.
everybody's gut biome's different, everybody absorbs all these environmental pollutants differently. We all react differently.
Hmm.
We've all had different vaccine schedules, had different,
Hmm. Hmm.
unfortunately for us, I mean, I am vaccine injured, so and
Yes.
I don't pretend that I'm not. But what this has been an awesome conversation. Nia, in closing, or is there anything else, babe, that you wanted to touch on?
No, I don't
Or
think so.
in closing, do you have any closing thoughts or ideas that you just want to share with the listeners?
yeah, I mean, I think kind of how you where you were going with that is the thing that I have on my heart most lately when it comes to the world of carnivore and experimenting is that I want the community to stay that way. I don't want us to tilt into that hyper dogmatic, like we're coming for everybody's carnivore card if you do something a little bit different. Because everything has the potential, especially with the way social media is and stuff, to kind of tilt towards that. And so that's with all the change we have going on and the potential for change, society wide. I think like we're all on the same team when it comes to uh, promoting this way of eating, just trying to get people off the processed junk, right, off of the excessive alcohol and the excessive caffeine, right, and these things that control us ultimately. If you want to live as a free person, you got to start with those things, in my opinion, and making sure that these things don't have control over our behavior and our thought process and ultimately who we're becoming. And so I think a lot about that. And obviously I'm not perfect, and I have my days, right, just like everybody, but I think a lot about that, about like the next generation. And yeah, maybe my health is screwed up for a number of reasons and I have to be super strict, and that may never change, right? But what kind of world um, can I help create for my daughter when she grows up? And maybe if we can stay together as a team, the low carb to carnivore realm, proper human diet realm, so to speak, I think we can influence bigger change and more systemic change. I think we can wake people up and at least encourage them and inspire them to at least try and look into some of this stuff and experiment, because ultimately, like we've been talking about, it's you've got to experiment. Not no one specific version of carnivore or keto or paleo or whatever is going to work for every single human being. And so I think people have been afraid to experiment because of the messaging about nutrition and animal products and saturated fat and cholesterol and all this kind of stuff. So the more of us are just putting out our stories anecdotally, and the more research is starting to come out. I know that the big LDL paper, the lean mass hyperresponder paper, just got published, and so like the more of that stuff comes out and challenges these narratives, and our community grows, and we don't nitpick each other to death over how perfect we are or aren't, right? Like, or what intervention somebody chooses to use. Like, if we can just keep this thing rolling and keep the momentum going, I think we can really, really change, the health outcomes of the people in our country and around the world. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that the next decade, 20 years can be better than in terms of health for the masses, let's say, than maybe the past 50 years were. So at least that's the way I like to think.
Yeah, and in closing, I would like to say if you are in the Northeast Texas area and you're listening and you are looking for some homegrown beef, we do have a half a cow currently available. So check us out at TheTexasBoys.com or shoot us an email, countrytexasboys@gmail.com. It is for local pickup. We don't ship yet. We might be doing that in the future. But Neah, thank you so much for coming on the Fearless Podcast. This has been great. And we'll see you all in the next show.
Thank you.